Genuinely wish someone would come up to me and tell me that abortion should be illegal or abortion is a sin.
Abortion is a sin. Abortion should be illegal. Abortion is murdering an unborn child.
As a devout Christian myself, I would love to chat with you, because my first question to you would be, what would you suggest I would have done when I lost my pregnancy at 19 weeks and 6 days? What would you have suggested that I done? Would you recommend that I then carry that life around that was no longer alive for the remainder of the months that I had and then deliver it? What would you have had me do?
Simply, this woman is very confused on what an abortion is compared to a D&C, which is a dilation in curettage. This woman, very unfortunately and very sadly, she had a miscarriage at 19 weeks. That is tragic. That is super sad. However, she did not have an abortion. She had the lifeless body of her baby removed from her body. That's not an abortion. That is a D&C. A dilation in curettage is where they open her up enough to remove the baby's parts and the baby's body. It is not a pretty thing. However, an abortion, they first kill the baby. They first remove the life of a still living baby. They kill it. They murder a child and then remove its corpse. In your case, you did not murder that baby. That baby unfortunately died from natural causes. That is not abortion. You are arguing for something that you are very confused on. Abortion is not what you had in that situation.
And you believe that somewhere in this beautiful, holy book, abortion is a sin.
Yes, that book repeatedly says that murder is a sin, regardless of the age of the person that's being murdered. If you look at Leviticus 18:19, it specifically, Leviticus 18:22. No, Leviticus 18:21. One of those. I'll put it on screen. Leviticus 18:21. It specifically says that it is an abomination for you to sacrifice your children to Moloch. That is exactly what abortion is. It is murdering a child in the sacrifice to Satan. That is what abortion is. What you had done is not an abortion. What you had done is something that was medically necessary after you had a miscarriage. That is a very different thing.
And furthermore, I would also ask, how many of the commandments in here do you in fact follow? Because we are taught, right? Corinthians, it says when you are praying out in public, women should have their head covered.
So you're comparing murdering a baby to covering your head? You should definitely understand what you're talking about more before you make a video on it.
I ain't never seen anyone have their head covered.
That's a very common thing, actually. There's many women who do that. Now, that can be debated on whether that's for a specific time or for now. There's a lot of debate on it. I'm not getting into that. But there's many, many women who do that in both Reformed traditions and other Christian traditions, including traditions that are not actually Christian but pretend to be Christian, such as like Roman Catholicism, stuff like that. There's occasionally stuff that you see within those realms that follow those kind of things.
Or be taught to have their head covered. As a new believer, I've never been taught that. So if we're just cherry picking to fit our narrative and to fit our...
We're not cherry picking. Murdering a baby is always heinously evil. Always.
Argument, I would just stay quiet. I think it is the most intelligent thing to do because you don't know where you're coming from.
Man, do I wish you took your own advice on this video.
You don't know what you're talking about. You don't have sources. You have nothing. So the next time you want to say something like that, please let me know what I should have done with my unborn, unalive, 19 and 6 week old baby that I, mind you, very much desperately wanted, and I was in a spiraling, crippling depression for months following that loss. Let me know.
I'm very, very sorry to hear about the loss that you had. That is an absolutely heinous, disgusting, awful tragedy that's a result of us living in a fallen world. I'm very sorry that you lost a kid. That is a really, really painful thing. I'm very sorry that happened. But what you're arguing is not what abortion is. Your video has a false premise, and that's the reason I'm addressing it. I'm not doing this in an aggressive way towards you, and I apologize if my tone came off in that way. I'm not doing this in a way to slander you or anything like that, but what you were saying is that what you had was an abortion, and that's just not true. You had a D&C. You had an operation that was medically necessary to remove an already dead baby from your body. What you're advocating for is not what you had done. What you're advocating for is murdering a child. So when you said that it's the most intelligent thing to stay quiet when you don't know what you're talking about,